Everyone, it's David Bumble back with Joe from thousandeyes. Joe, great to have you back on the show.
It's great to be here.
Joe, I love these interviews with you because it's not just chit-chat, you're doing demos, and I'm hoping you're not going to disappoint us again today. You're going to show us another demo, right?
Of course, coming with you, I have to bring my laptop, have to be able to kind of share a little bit about what's new at thousandeyes. One important thing that we've been talking about is this concept of assurance, right? Assurance isn't a new term. It's been around for a little bit, but how do we modernize assurance for the challenges that people face today? As you think about what assurance means, you can define it really in its most simplest forms. Assurance is the promise of an outcome. So in the case of how we think about digital experience and how do you deliver on the promise of a great connected experience, through the ability to continuously baseline that digital experience, to proactively detect issues, to localize and diagnose, and then to mitigate and remediate. And I want to maybe share with you a couple of things that are new. One of the newest ways we think about is this new concept of event detection that I'm kind of demoing with you right now. What's great about event detection, so imagine you're a customer and you're running active monitoring from, hundreds of different tests, maybe thousands of tests, maybe from hundreds of different agents. And you have to think about, okay, how do you know if the issue that's being raised is worthwhile to investigate? So what we took is the advanced intelligence that thousandeyes created with Internet Insights that uses advanced machine learning to be able to detect problems across the broader internet that might be impacting you. Imagine, relying upon a status page, which is really a bad thing to rely upon, but you could really rely upon Internet Insights to be authoritative, saying, do you have a problem across the internet? What we did is we took Internet Insights and distilled it down to just your own environment across all of your tests. In every single layer within the test. Remember, a thousandeyes test could have a layer 7 metric, a layer 4, a layer 3, all the way down into BGP and otherwise. And within every layer, hundreds of different metrics. Now we're able to then computationally determine, is there an event that's worthy to be able to investigate? And so what I'm showing you today is actually our capability, what we have with thousandeyes event detection. And what this has done is automatically for a customer to detect and says, hey, there's an issue affecting this domain. We actually see that, this event has actually occurred over 30 times. What you find a lot of times is that an event might be recurring over and over again, and maybe it's like a 5-minute blip, but it's still over time adds up to something that's worthwhile to investigate. And what we've done is we've also trained a model in the back that allows us to then also provide a way for this to be really easily consumable. It says, hey, not only is this just, loss latency and jitter, but in a human readable way, it says, hey, we detected there's an issue within this application. It's experiencing HTTP receive timeout issue. It's affecting these locations, and here's ultimately what you can do about it. And within the event detection, then you say, hey, that's worthwhile to go and investigate. I can single click into the views and be able to then say, okay, let's analyze a path visualization for all those tests together in a way that allows you to then accelerate those different points of assurance, that ability to detect, diagnose, localize, and ultimately mitigate. And so this new capability leverages really the power of what thousandeyes is known for, being authoritative across the entirety of your connection, both the owned infrastructure as well as the unowned part of your path.
Yep.
I wanted to also then come back and maybe talk about some of the other parts that's new. Last year when we were talking, I mentioned about this new concept of Cloud Insights. And what Cloud Insights was trying to do was how do we extend this notion of that path visualization deeper into a cloud provider, right? Yep. We see customers are moving their workloads from on-premises data centers into cloud. And as you do that, your ability to understand the path through the cloud becomes somewhat diminished.
Yeah.
Right? Once you hit that TCP termination point on the edge of the cloud, you're not going to respond to the ICMP probes as you normally would. And so how do you build an understanding of how that connection goes all the way to the instances that are hosting that application? So, what Cloud Insights says is being able to extend that path visualization all the way to the instances that are hosting it, so you can get a deeper understanding of what's going on. So let's take this other example, right? So we have an application. This application is hosted in AWS. I can see that I'm testing from a location in London, and I can see I have a drop in availability at this point in time, right? So if we go into the path visualization, I can be able to see, okay, here's London. I can already see where in the AWS network I'm hitting the edge of their border nodes.
Yep.
I can see that I'm leveraging the AWS Global Accelerator, which provides that TCP acceleration. But what I want to do is say, what's this look like between this AWS Global Accelerator and ultimately the end destination?
Yeah, exactly.
So now what I can do, if I come into Cloud Insights, now I can actually build a topology dynamically for how that is connected. So let's look here, right? So I have the same AWS Global Accelerator. And now you can see here's all of the connectivity through the load balancers, through the target groups, all the way to the 4 instances that are hosting that application at that point in time. Now, David, if you were to go back and say, what is the number one cause of outages? What would you say?
Human error, maybe?
Exactly, right? I mean, it's the administrator that fat fingers something, or sometimes it's also something that's done actually out of the goodness, right? A security administrator makes a change without understanding the ramifications downstream for the overall experience. And so what we aim to do with this capability is to say, how can we be able to understand how the path changes at the point in time when the degradation happens? And so as we look at here and say, okay, the event, what we can see is that actually at this point in time when there was that degradation, we see that now there is a configuration change that was detected from the entire path. And we can see that not only that, we localize the configuration change to this application load balancer that corresponds with when we started to see the HTTP receive errors. So if I come into the configuration change, I can be able to then pull that up and then to dynamically understand how that path changed, whether it was a addition of a security group or reduction of a security group that ultimately led to that degradation. So having that power of extending the path visualization deeper into the cloud and now adding a new layer of correlation with configuration really makes these network operations teams really kind of supercharges their ability to deeply understand that path.
This is great.
Now, I wanted to show like one additional one because, I come and talk to you and I love being able to kind of share what the team's been working on. This week we've been talking about this concept of traffic insights, which is similar in the ability to then deepen the correlation, but instead of bringing not just configuration correlation, now we're actually bringing real user traffic analysis in correlating it with the synthetic traffic so you get a deeper view.
Nice.
So imagine this scenario, right? You have an increase in page load time and you want to understand what is happening at that point in time that could be causing that issue. Synthetics is really valuable in helping you to understand the path along the way. But then real user traffic through NetFlow and others is helpful to understand, okay, well, what was the observed traffic that could be causing the issue at that point in time, right? So as we look at here and see this path from this agent to this destination, we can see that along this layer 3 hop, here's the path that was detected. And thousandeyes, the synthetic portion, detected that there's forwarding loss at this particular edge router at that point in time that was causing the increase in page load time. Right? But now if I come into traffic insights, now what I can do is say, okay, let's understand what was the traffic that was observed at that edge router that could be causing the forwarding loss. And so if I look at here's that same edge router. And if we look at not just that IP, but all IPs, I can be able to come in and now group this by application and see that at the point when my traffic surges, you can see that the average upstream and downstream is say 30 to 40 megabits and 200 megabits down. And you can see now I've surged almost 100% now, 50 and almost 500 megabits. You can see what's causing that is that, an update that kicked off, within that local office that concentrated the traffic and ultimately overloaded that edge router. So the ability to put that into that seamless workflow is really important. Going back to that notion of assurance and how do you deliver on the promise of a great experience? Well, you need to have the ability to rapidly detect, localize, and diagnose problems. Once you do that, mitigating it's fairly straightforward. In this case, either modifying your QoS policies to prefer the traffic on that edge router, rolling back that configuration change that was detected that caused the outage. And that's really, the power of what thousandeyes can provide and, some of the new capabilities that we're rolling out for our customers.
But Joe, I think it's, going back, and I always mention this, but like doing this for many years, there's so much traffic and there's so much going on. It's so difficult to find that needle in the haystack, right? And that's what this is giving you.
Yeah, most of when you think about that from an end-to-end perspective, what happens many times, hey, you expect there's an issue, but everybody who you ask says, hey, everything's green from my side,
exactly.
right?
It's not my fault.
It's not my fault, whether that's an internal team or an external team. At the end of the day, your job as a network engineer, network operations is to solve the problem. So let's get out of the blame game and let's actually identify the evidence so that we can actually bring the right teams together to go solve that problem. Whether that's an internal team, maybe it's a firewall issue inside of your own infrastructure, maybe it's an edge router, as we saw, that is experiencing degradation because they have a surge in application traffic, or maybe it's your ISP that's just having a bad day. At the end of the day, you want to be able to localize the problem so you can fix it.
Joe, AI is all the rage at the moment. Is there a way to monitor the AIs that people are using? Because I'm assuming companies are going to be deploying AIs more and more internally and perhaps externally.
So, before I answer that, let me tell you a quick story.
That'd be great.
So, when Thousand Eyes was an early startup, our founders were working late at night in San Francisco, and the local building had a great policy where at 6 p.m., the lights would shut off automatically. Being engineers, Mohit and Ricardo, wrote a simple script to then automatically make a phone call to then have the lights be turned on, right? They use a backend service like Twilio, I think.
Yep.
One day, at 6 p.m., the lights go off and they expect them to automatically go back on, and they don't. And so they try to debug that script and realize the communication service, Twilio, was hosted in AWS. And at that point in time, AWS was having an outage.
Okay.
So the point that I'm trying to say is that many times you don't understand these third-party dependencies and the infrastructure that your providers are relying upon. So in the case of, say, an AI, as you're building, say, these AI services into your products, you're increasing the chain of dependencies.
Yeah.
Because not only your application relies upon that AI, but that AI service you're leveraging runs on something.
Yep.
And how do you understand that full chain of dependencies? So what Thousand Eyes can do is be able to understand that full chain and also allow you to then synthetically test through API monitoring and others to say, hey, are the service providers that I care about, can I monitor them and be able to assure that they're going to be running when I need them to be running?
I mean, it's becoming even more important when we're moving to like AI agents, and it seems to be that's the new big thing in AI. I mean, it sounds cool from like a high level point of view, but like it's still running on infrastructure.
If you're dependent upon your AI agent to provide a critical part of your application experience, then you sure as heck better be able to assure that digital experience and know that at that point in time is that AI agent going to perform, and it can perform both in terms of the latency and response. And that's something that Thousand Eyes can help to provide as a way to be able to then more deeply understand the entirety of that digital experience through your critical applications.
Joe, as always, I really want to thank you for, doing demos. I love talking to you. In senior leadership, but you're so technical. Thanks so much for doing a demo and sharing, updates.
Yeah, I love talking about Thousand Eyes. Obviously, we love wearing the t-shirts, and it's a great product. And I think it's something that, really resonates because at the end of the day, we're still in the very early days of what the impact of the internet and all these new technologies that are going to be coming out. So it's fascinating. Always great to talk with you.